the pre-trip inspection, turn the steering wheel all the way to the left, then turn the bus off and set the run knob to the light's position. Open both the front and rear doors and turn on the hazards and all of the interior lights. Finally, turn on your high beams and leave the seat, taking the key with you to chock the rear door side tire. For each side of the exterior of the bus, you must check 3 things. First, that all of your lights and markers appear to be intact and working. Next, that there are no obvious signs of damage to the side of the bus. And lastly, that there are no leaks or low-hanging wires. Once you have observed this, move into the front driver's side tire to inspect it. Check that the fender flare and mud flap are secure. The front tires can have no less than 4/32 of an inch of tread and cannot be recapped, regrooved, or retreaded. Check that the tire is properly inflated. The sidewall of the tire does not have any excessive damage or bubbles. The wheel does not have any cracks, dents, welds, or excessive rust, and all 10 lug nuts are secure. The hub oil cap should have no cracks, dents, welds, or excessive rust and is not leaking oil, and all 6 nuts are secure. The tire's valve stem is capped and secure. Behind the tire, which you cannot see, are the suspension and braking systems. For the braking system, there are brake hoses and chambers, drums and lining, and the slack adjuster and push rod. For the suspension, there are the airbags and mounts, shock absorbers and mounts, and the torque arm. There is no air leaking from the airbags. On this side of the front of the bus is the steering system. Here there is the steering box and hoses, which is not leaking, and the steering linkages, which are connected. Here is the battery box. This bus contains a 12-volt battery and a 24-volt battery. The 12-volt battery runs the electrical system, and the 24-volt battery starts the bus. The driver's side mirror is secure and the glass is intact, and the directional is working. Step back and observe that your lights and markers are working and intact. There are no obvious signs of damage to the front of the bus, and there are no leaks or low-hanging wires. Next, move into the front of the bus. Check that the windshield is secure. The windshield wipers have good tension and the rubber is intact. The door side mirror is secure, and the glass is intact and the directional is working. On the door side of the bus, check again for the 3 important things. Once you have observed these, move into the front door. Check that the door has good tension, the glass is not broken, the stanchions are secure, and the weather stripping is intact. Next, move to the fuel door. Observe that the door has good tension and latches. Check that the fuel cap is secure and look underneath the bus. Check that the tank is not leaking, the straps are not rotted, and that the frame of the bus is not cracked or rotted. Approach the rear door side tire and inspect it. The fender flare and mud flap are secure. The rear tires can have no less than 2/32 of an inch of tread and can be recapped, regrooved, and retreaded. Check that the tire is properly inflated. The rear axle contains 2 tires on each side. With this, you must check that the 2 tires are not touching and that there are no foreign objects in between the tires. If the outside tire were bulging, this would indicate that the inside tire was flat. The sidewall of the tire does not have any excessive damage or bubbles. The wheel does not have any cracks, dents, welds, or excessive rust, and all 10 lug nuts are secure. The hub oil cap has no cracks, dents, welds, or excessive rust and is not leaking oil, and all 10 nuts are secure. Both the outside and the inside tire's valve stems are capped and secure. Behind the tire, which you cannot see again, are the suspension and braking systems. For the braking system, there are brake hoses and chambers, drums and lining, and the slack adjuster and push rod. For the suspension, there are the airbags and mounts, shock absorbers and mounts, and the torque arm. There is no air leaking from the airbags. Open the side engine door. Check that the door has good tension. From left to right, observe first the air compressor governor. This is what we test during the air brakes test. This is the power steering fluid reservoir. Check that there are no leaks. Next, in the back is the air compressor, which is gear driven off of the engine. The shock absorbers and mounts and airbags and mounts are not rotted. And finally, the transmission and drive shaft are connected and there are no leaks. Coming to the rear of the bus, observe one last time that your lights and markers are intact and working. There are no obvious signs of damage to the bus, and that there are no leaks or low-hanging wires. In order to check that the reverse lights are working, you can either have a licensed CDL operator get in the seat and shift the bus into reverse, or you can run an exterior lamp test. Observe that the exhaust is free and clear of debris. Moving to the rear engine door, observe that the door has good tension and the license plate light is working. The coolant tank should have fluid visible in the glass, and the coolant hoses aren't cracked or leaking. The exhaust is connected and not rotted. At this time, you may be asked to check the oil. The water temperature gauge is reading 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the oil pressure gauge is reading 0 psi. Behind this door are the Serpentine and AC belts. The Serpentine belt runs the water pump, power steering pump, and the alternator, and the AC belt runs the AC. When entering the bus, always maintain 3 points of contact. Check that the floor has good tread and that the step is not sagging. Check that the stepwell lights are working and intact. The glass for the manual door release is not damaged. Then, check your driver mirrors that they are all intact and secure. Observe that the windows of the bus are not damaged. All of the roof and floor stanchions appear to be intact and secure, along with the seats and seat stanchions. This bus is equipped with 8 emergency exits, 2 doors, 2 roof hatches, and 4 windows. To test an emergency window, pull the latch up and push out to open. To close, put the latch back down and swing the window out with force. Check that the floor and steps to the back of the bus have good tread and that the step is not sagging. To test an emergency roof hatch, pop the hatch up on both sides, turn the latch to release, and push on the latch to open. To close, turn the latch back to the latched position and click the hatch back onto the hinge until it clicks. Then, pull down on both sides. Next, check that the rear passenger mirror is intact and secure. The rear door has good tension, the glass is not damaged, and the stanchions are secure. The rear door step is not sagging, and the floor has good tread. The manual door release here is cracked, so we will mark that on our defect sheet. In the toolbox, there must be spare exterior lights and a tire pressure gauge. Here is the first aid kit and the bodily fluid cleanup kit. The fire extinguisher is secured and full. The 3 emergency reflective triangles are secured here as well. Before getting in the seat, run a lamp test to show where the ABS light can be found on the lamp board. When sitting in the seat, always make sure that your seatbelt is fastened with the key in the ignition. Indicate where your engine start button is, then your fast idle switch. Test your hazards by turning them off and then back on again. Indicate which is your stop engine override switch. Test your interior lights in each position. In order to test roadside, you must shut your front and rear doors. Your transmission control box is reading neutral. Test the driver booster fan in all 3 positions: high, off, and low. Test your windshield wiper fluid. Test your heater defrost fan in all 4 positions: low, medium, high, and off. Check your gauges. The air pressure gauge is reading 105 psi. The water temperature gauge is reading 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The oil pressure gauge is reading 0 psi. The 12-volt battery gauge is reading 12 volt, and the 24-volt battery gauge is reading 24 volts. Test your auxiliary fans in all 3 positions: high, off, and low. Test the wheelchair ramp by first kneeling the bus. Then, turn on the power to the ramp. Deploy the ramp until it is on the ground. To stow the ramp, hold the stow button down until the ramp is fully stowed. Then, turn off the power to the lift and raise the bus by pressing upward once on the kneeling switch. Check that the steering wheel has no more than 2 inches of play and that the horn works. Check your left and right directionals by turning off your hazards and stepping on the indicator buttons on the floor. Check your high beams by turning them off and then back on again. Finally, make sure that your accelerator and brake pedals are free and clear of debris and that they have good tread.